Hello, and welcome to another episode of Solipsist Watched. I'm your host, the Social Solipsist, and this week I watched 1984's Red Dawn. And let's just get off to a rip-roaring start by saying, oh boy, what a garbage film. It is impressively terrible in almost every single way. Now, let me be clear. I did not go into it expecting, some great piece of cinema. But I expected a lot better than this. This is a film that has, it gets referenced a lot, has a lot of, direct and indirect references to it in cinematic history over the last 40 years. But holy cow, does it not deserve any of it? I genuinely have almost nothing good to say about this film whatsoever. I can't say it's one of the worst films I've ever watched because it's somewhat competent, but it is so poor in its competence that I think that honestly makes it worse. Wow. I mean, if you're watching this and you really like this film, you should maybe just stop here. 'Cause I'm going to tear this thing apart. Probably for not super long, because there's not even that much to talk about. The film is about the theoretical timeline in which World War III broke out in the 80s, where the Soviets had more success in their proxy wars, ended up taking over or incorporating, what was it? Cuba, Nicaragua, and Mexico or something like that, and then invaded the United States by air. And by the United States, I mean small town Colorado. I'm just going to let that sit. Because I knew within like a minute of starting this film that it was going to be bad. Because no person in their right mind, even in the height of the Cold War, which 1984 was not, would have thought that there would be a ground invasion of Colorado. Holy shit. I'm still flabbergasted by that. It's so terrible. Now, I read up about it just now after having finished it about 20 minutes ago. Apparently the script was originally supposed to be set in the Southwest United States, which would have made more sense. But that doesn't excuse everything else that's wrong with this. However, this reeks from head to toe of a film that was gutted completely once the script was sold. There are hints that this used to be a different film, and I'll get to those in a minute. But oh boy. It is just awful. I'm still like blown away and almost at a loss for words. The filming is terrible. The camera, like, pretty much there's no cinematography to speak of. The editing is very poor to the point where there are multiple occasions where there are glaring misedits where they should have cut like a second or two earlier. Not frames, like multiple seconds where they're like, you just didn't cut enough of this B-roll off. So I can literally see you starting up the vehicles and you like the scene is supposed to be of them rolling, but you called action and they weren't already rolling. And that's what got into the film. Most of the costumes are pretty poor. Most of the sets are cheap. I genuinely don't understand why the scope of this film is so large, and frankly, why they spent so much money where they did, because the places where they spent it are either directly or indirectly squandered. They keep going into this town. It's dressed up in these pretty shoddy, like, with pretty shoddy sets. Like, listen, this is at its core. No, I'll come back to that. The costumes are bad. The troops and stuff are bad. The way they use their equipment is completely mindless. The setting is completely without any flavor whatsoever. Like, clearly somebody had a vision in their mind of, oh, we want to really, get across that this is beautiful Colorado and what an offense it is that the Soviets invaded us. Except the only sign that they wanted to do that is that they occasionally will cut in at the beginning of a scene. They'll cut in a wide shot of just like a panoramic, or like a view of a landscape, and then go to the scene. It is so incredibly incompetent. Like, I've seen high school student films that are made better and have better pacing and writing and acting. It's all terrible. So let's get to I guess we talk about the story and the plot, which are bizarre, almost non-existent. There are no characters. For all intents and purposes, the dialogue is 95% awful, 5% passable. 4% passable, 1% actually pretty good. And the only character who delivers any lines of note, or has any characterization whatsoever, or has any charisma on screen, is the enemy general, the Cuban general, who has like a narrative arc of, he's the only person with an arc in the entire film, basically. And he's actually acted pretty competently. He's the only actor of, I don't even know his name. I don't think he's anybody of particular note, but like, he's the only person in the film who can act whatsoever. By the way, this has Patrick Swayze as a lead. Patrick Swayze is and always was a terrible actor. It also has Charlie Sheen, same story, and Leah Thompson, who's barely a character and is very clearly edited out of most of the film. And she's a competent actor in her own right, so I don't know. Clearly the script was awful as well, or well, what the script became when it got to shooting. I always need to clarify that, because the scripts as they are delivered are or the scripts as they are purchased are very different from how they actually end up on screen. All of the dialogue is garbage. The only dialogue of any note, of any like depth at all, is between the invading characters, the Cubans and the Russians and so on and so forth, which is also delivered in Spanish and Russian, which is kind of fascinating, because it's, at least the I don't speak Russian, but the Spanish is pretty good. It's, they actually, somehow the Spanish dialogue is written better than the English dialogue. None of the English dialogue is any good. And through the lack of competent acting and the lack of any good writing, none of the quote unquote heroic characters, these high schoolers, have any characterization whatsoever. At no point did I care about what happened to any of them. And that really gets down to what this movie is or was supposed to be. There are some signs, just a few, actually mostly coming from the, Cuban general, that like this was at one point had some sort of anti-war message. And yet, the main tone of the film is one of this like hyper nationalistic American exceptionalism, and these ideas of this is our country, we've got guns and we'll keep it. These horrible commies, like it's just miserable. And then there are just these sprinkles of like something else. The Cuban guy having the narrative arc of essentially being anti-war by the end. He lets Patrick Swayze and Charlie Sheen go as they're like walking away wounded because he doesn't want to be there anymore. It's like the only decent scene in the film at all is his like grappling with his final grappling with his disinterest in being there anymore. I still cannot believe how bad this film is. And so many people really enjoy it. And it gets referenced so often. Frankly, I should have known what I was getting into when I started the film and there was a riff tracks already on it. Because I forgot that I had a riff. I downloaded a ton of films a long time ago, and sometimes forget what I have, and I forget that I've added riff tracks to some of them, and having never watched it and going, wait, what's going on? And I was like, oh, riff tracks. Why is this here? Oh, well, it's probably should have been a good indicator to me that this was not going to be any good. But even so, I was blown away at how bad this was. It also takes itself deathly seriously, top to bottom. Like, this easily could have been given a lighter tone. And while I'm not saying that it's entirely appropriate to make a comedy film or anything like that, in the about the invasion of the United States by Soviet military and the deaths of hundreds of civilians, but like it could have had comedic. It has these unintentional comedic beats because the Soviets are so incompetent. And it's such a dichotomy between how the Soviet extras behave versus how the couple of commanding officers and things speak to each other. Because they speak as though they have a plan. And then every action taken on any field of battle is completely without tactics. It is just, guys dressed up in long coats falling all over each other with squibs firing off of them. And that really gets to something else about this, which is that if this has that, nationalistic propaganda of the era, it doesn't even get a pass for that because there are so many movies. Like there's basically 50 years of cinematic history in the United States about the Cold War. Dozens, if not hundreds, of very good, essentially propaganda films. I mean, well, like there's like 50 years during which basically every villain in an American film or in much of, the Western, um, the like Western cinematic canon, the NATO nations, everything they made, the enemy was always this, like the Soviets or the communists or whatever, for the most part, because it was just an easy enemy. Uh, and that's not to say that a lot of those don't also paint the picture of a an incompetent war force. In many ways, the like we have a bad there's some bad history that gets peddled in in our education systems about like the Soviets were only winning in World War II because they had millions of people they could throw to their deaths, which really does not characterize them properly. The Soviets, for all their faults, were not a bunch of morons who just liked throwing their citizens to their deaths on battlefields. They were tactically competent. They built, impressive technology. There was a lot that they did quite well, a lot that they didn't do very well as well. But like the idea of the incompetent Soviets is, while it has a cinematic history, this might be the most bumbling they ever are. And that comes back to my point about the comedy. It could have been comedic, where, and it should be, but it takes itself so damn seriously, where this like hilariously upbeat music plays, like our heroic high schoolers are running into town, taking out whole squadrons of trained soldiers, and this heroic music plays, but it's deathly serious. And when one of them gets wounded or killed, it's just like it's treated as like a travesty. But the lack of pacing, the lack of tempo, and the lack of irony in what just preceded it undercuts it completely. At the same time, like, there's no story arc to the film other than the so-called heroes camping out in the woods and basically trying to pick off enemies where they can. And it's just a couple of scenes of exposition followed by a goofy battle, and then a couple more scenes of exposition, and the cycle repeats over and over again. And it's just so bizarre. There's no like story arc. They never make a plan. Like, most of the battles are done essentially as montage. And they're not done cheaply either. Well, they are. Some of them are done cheaply, but again, the places the money is spent are so weird, because it's very clear that there are some things they spent quite a lot of time and money on. Mainly the props department got most of the money, because they built, tanks and armored carriers and they mocked up helicopters, like actual helicopters that would fly, and a lot of work was put in. There's shots with huge pyrotechnics that, you can see hundreds of thousands of dollars go up in smoke in a single shot, in like a couple of seconds, right? But the battle that surrounds it is so goofy, or it is immediately undercut by like some, tower collapsing and you can see the things that made out of fucking cardboard. Like, why would you not spread that money around so at least within the scene there was some consistency? Scale yourself back. Like, I understand that you may have delusions of grandeur, but like, was nobody there to go, dude, you spent all this money on this, this tank, and and then, people are running around with rubber weapons that are flopping, and they've got, just cheap everything else. It's so weird. I feel like I had something else I wanted to say about this, but yeah. So speaking of rubber weapons, there actually aren't that many fake weapons in this. There are a lot of mock-ups of weapons they couldn't actually get. And then again, with the expenses, nobody checked this film for any sort of like weapon accuracy at all. And I don't just mean they couldn't get, they couldn't get the AK model in question. No, I mean like a tank fires over people's heads and they aren't immediately concussed to death. Like, there are at least half a dozen scenes where every single one of the heroes should be dead because something is done with a weapon that would kill them all. Because nobody checked to see how any of these weapons actually worked. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like a weapons expert by any means, but like, you can't stand under directly under the barrel of a tank as it fires. It would kill you. Like, it's so stupid. And again, like, when there are so many other times when they should have died, or like the weapons they were using don't work the way whoever was, composing the scene thought, it's like, you guys should be dead so many times over. So even if you did have characterization, I still wouldn't give a shit when people die. Because there's no stakes. It's random. It's just for the sake of, tugging at heartstrings that haven't been earned. This one's going to stick with me with just how bad it is. I cannot believe what a useless film this is. Wow. There's enough little sprinkles of things in here that make me think that the original script could have possibly been some genius thing that was entirely gutted. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to go searching for it. Part of the reason I wanted to watch this movie was that I was also remembering that they did a remake / reimagining in 2012, which was reportedly terrible. And I didn't really have any interest in watching it, but this one also has a reputation for being pretty good, or at least, a cultural touchstone. So I needed to know about it. Out of morbid curiosity, I think I'm going to have to watch the 2012 film, and it's probably terrible. And I think if you don't hear back from me about it, you can assume as much. If you do see a video about it from me, it'll either be because it turned out to be great, or it turned out to be uniquely terrible in an entirely different way that bears bitching about. Uh, yeah, this is a bizarre film. It accomplishes nothing. It's terrible on almost every front. It's racist, sexist, homophobic. It has no stakes and does not make me care about anything whatsoever, and actively makes me feel kind of gross thinking about it. What an unbelievable waste. Um, there are so many other films, like if you just want a like feel good nationalistic American film, there are so many others that you could watch instead. Who gives a shit about this one? Holy crap. Anyway, uh leave your thoughts in the comments if you've seen this film, if you think it's stupid or you think it's great, or you think that I'm an anti-American piece of garbage. Let me know in the comments because whew, I don't know where this one's reputation comes from. I've been the Social Solipsist. Thank you for watching another episode of Solipsist Watched, and I will see you guys next time.